The morning rush at LAX airport was very busy. People waited in long lines to check their bags. The floors were shiny, and a voice kept talking on the loudspeaker, giving flight information. You could hear the rolling sound of fancy suitcases being pulled by people in a hurry. Everyone had somewhere to go, maybe on vacation or to work. Nobody really noticed the quiet man who walked in. He wore an old hoodie, dark jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His boots looked worn out, and his face hadn't been shaved. A security guard near the door looked at him carefully and quietly reached for his radio, just in case. But the man didn't seem nervous. He walked calmly with a small black bag in one hand and a folded boarding pass in the other. He was going to Tokyo on Flight 765. He was in first class. He had no group of helpers with him. No photographers were following him. It was just him. When he got to the first-class security line, the worker at the gate looked up, surprised. Then he smiled a little, but it wasn't a real smile. "Sir, this line is for first-class passengers," the man said, already pointing to the economy line. He hadn't even checked the man's ticket yet. The man, Keanu Reeves, didn't say anything. He just held out his boarding pass. The worker looked at it, then looked at him again. He didn't believe it. "Are you sure this is your ticket?" he asked. "Sometimes people try to sneak in." Keanu nodded quietly. "It's mine." The worker still wasn't sure, so he called over another officer. This one wore a full TSA uniform. She looked at the ticket with a special light and scanned it. After a long look, she handed it back. "It's real," she said, but she didn't say sorry. The gate opened with a buzz, and Keanu walked through. When he got to the fancy lounge for first-class passengers, the same thing happened again. A woman at the desk with a neat bun and perfect clothes looked at him and was confused. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm flying to Tokyo." "First class," Keanu said, giving her the ticket. Her smile faded. She looked at the paper, then at her screen, then back at him. "I need to ask my boss," she mumbled, then went behind a door. Behind Keanu, people started whispering. "Is he lost?" someone said. "Maybe he's a cleaner," another person jokes. "Look at that coat." "EW," someone else said. Keanu just stood still. The woman came back and said, "You can sit over there." She pointed to a seat near the vending machines, far away from the comfy chairs and the free drinks. Keanu didn't argue. He sat down quietly and pulled out a small book. It was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He didn't need champagne. He needed patience. And today, he was going to need a lot of it. No one there knew that the man in the cap had once been called the kindest man in Hollywood. But very soon, the whole airport would find out who he was, and what a big mistake they had made. The gate for Flight 765 started to board. Music played softly. Keanu stood up, gently closed his book, and walked to the boarding counter. He kept his cap low and his shoulders relaxed. He held his ticket ready. But before he could scan it, a TSA officer stepped in front of him. "Sir," he said, "I need to see your ID." Keanu gave him his passport and boarding pass. The officer looked at them and frowned. "This photo doesn't look like you." "It's me," Keanu said softly. "You have no escort, no checked bags, and no VIP record." He pointed to the side. "Step aside. You need to be checked again." People behind him whispered. A woman asked her husband, "Who's that?" "Probably a stowaway," the man said. Keanu didn't argue. He stepped aside again. 2 more officers came. They searched him and his bag carefully, opening every pocket. A small crowd gathered. People took out their phones. Still, no one recognized him. Then the younger officer said, "Take off the cap." Keanu paused, then took it off. His hair was dark with some silver. One officer looked at him for a moment like he might know him, but then the moment passed. "You're sweating," the officer said. "Why?" Keanu gave a small smile. "Because I'm a human being." The officer didn't smile back. "You're being difficult for someone traveling alone." Another officer, taller and more serious, stepped forward. "Why does your ticket say first class? You look like someone from a movie about a road trip." "I'm just traveling quietly," Keanu said. "Sure," the officer said. "Sit down. The captain will decide if you can get on the plane." Keanu looked at him calmly. "Is that how it works now?" Then someone behind them said, "Excuse me, what's going on here?" The serious officer turned. "Just making sure everything's safe, sir. His documents seem off." But the man talking wasn't a guard. He was the pilot. His blue uniform had silver stripes. He looked important and in charge. The officers stood straighter. The pilot looked at Keanu and gave a small nod. Then he told the officers, "He's on my passenger list. First class. I checked it myself." One officer tried to argue. But with all due, the captain stopped him. "You made a mistake." He turned to Keanu. "Sorry for the delay, sir. We'll get you on the plane right away." The people waiting were shocked. The captain had stood up for this quiet man. Keanu nodded, picked up his bag, and walked to the plane. Still, no one knew who he was. Not yet. The first-class cabin was fancy. Brown leather seats, shiny metal pieces, and glasses of champagne sparkled quietly. Everything looked perfect. Keanu followed a young flight attendant named Maya. She gave him a polite smile, though she looked confused. "This way, sir. Seat 2A. He nodded, put his bag away, and sat down. The seat was very comfy. He put his book and passport beside him and buckled his seatbelt. He looked like any other tired traveler. But people behind him were already talking. "Who is that?" The captain walked him on the plane. "He doesn't look like first class." Keanu heard it all but didn't say anything. Then, more first-class passengers came on board. A rich-looking couple walked in. The woman had shiny blonde hair and bright red lipstick. Her heels made loud tapping sounds. She looked at Keanu and wrinkled her nose. "Excuse me," she said to Maya. "I think there's a mistake." Maya blinked. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Aldridge?" "Celeste Aldridge. My husband and I asked for seats 2A and 2B. Window seats. We always sit there." Maya looked at her tablet. "Mr. Aldridge is in 2B, but 2A wasn't requested." Celeste interrupted. "I always sit in 2A. I use this airline every month." Her husband, Nathan, looked bored and was already checking his emails. Maya smiled, but it looked tight. "I understand, ma'am, but 2A is taken. It belongs to Mr. Reeves." "Who?" Celeste asked. Maya didn't answer. Celeste turned to look. Keanu looked up from his book. Their eyes met. She didn't know who he was. "Well," she said, "that's not okay. He probably sneaked in from business class." Maya tried to stop her, but Celeste waved her hand. "I'll take care of it." She walked up to Keanu. "Sorry, but this seat is mine." Keanu looked at her. "It's not. You don't understand," she said. "I get sick without a window seat." Keanu didn't move. "Then you should ask the airline next time." She glared at him, then turned and walked away, angry. She didn't go to her seat. She stood near the back, whispering to the flight attendants. Maya looked nervous and kept glancing at Keanu. Keanu just sat quietly. He drank some water and looked out the window. He had been in scenes like this before, but only in movies. Soon, 2 more workers came to his seat. One was named Logan. The other was a serious supervisor. They walked over slowly like Keanu was a wild animal. "Sir," Logan said kindly, "we need to check something." "Check what?" Keanu asked. "There's a small problem with the seats." The supervisor spoke. "Do you have your boarding pass?" Keanu gave it to them. They looked at it for a long time. It clearly said 2A. The scanner beeped. Everything matched. Still, they didn't walk away. Logan cleared his throat. "Some people are worried. They think you might be in the wrong seat." Keanu looked at them. "The captain brought me here." The supervisor twitched. "Yes, that's why we're being careful." They gave the ticket back and turned to go. Then, from behind them, Celeste shouted, "That's it! You're just letting him stay." People were watching now. Heads turned as a man with a bald head leaned out from his seat. "This is silly," he said. Celeste kept talking. "People pay a lot of money to sit up here. We don't need people like him sitting in these nice seats for free." Keanu didn't move. Maya looked shocked. Celeste stepped closer, and her voice got louder. "I've seen people like him before. They buy cheap tickets and then try to make us feel bad so they get to sit in first class." "Ma'am," Maya tried to stop her, but Celeste didn't listen. "I'll call my lawyer. This is wrong. I know how these things work." It got very quiet. Then Keanu asked calmly, "How do they work?" Celeste was surprised. Keanu turned to face her fully. His eyes were calm but serious. "You show off your money and expect people to treat you like you're better. Then you see someone who doesn't look like you, and you want them to leave. That's what you mean, right?" The cabin was silent. Even Nathan Aldridge looked up from his phone. Celeste said, I don't have to listen to this." "You already did," Keanu said. She turned and walked back to her seat, angry. Maya took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm so sorry." But Keanu shook his head. He didn't need an apology. He was waiting for the right person to speak up. And that person was about to. Before we continue the story, we want to know what you think. Do police officers always protect people, or have you seen them act unfairly sometimes? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's a good or bad story, your voice matters. Back to the story. The airplane door was still open. Flight 765 was already 10 minutes late. There was a strange quiet in the cabin. It wasn't the kind of quiet from flying. It felt more like something serious had just happened. In seat 2A, Keanu Reeves was sitting still. His book was closed on the armrest. He wasn't reading anymore. He was listening. Behind him, people whispered, "I can't believe they let him stay. I heard the woman in 4C tried to pay the crew money." What kind of person buys a first-class ticket and shows up looking like that? No one said Keanu's name. They didn't know it. To them, he was just a messy-looking stranger. Someone who didn't belong in their fancy part of the plane. Across the aisle, Celeste Aldridge had her arms crossed. She was whispering to Nathan, "I'm going to email the airline. I want them to give me something for this. It's not okay. They've let things get sloppy." Nathan only nodded. He was still looking at his phone. At the front of the cabin, Maya was talking quietly with Logan. They both looked worried. Then, a soft sound came from above, 3 simple chimes. Everyone looked up. Then came the captain's voice through the speaker. "Hello, everyone. This is your captain. Before we leave, I need to talk about something important." Every head turned. Even the curtain between business and first class moved as people leaned in to listen. Keanu didn't move. He looked straight ahead. "There's been some confusion and unfair behavior about a passenger sitting in seat 2A, said the captain. The silence was strong and heavy. "Let me be very clear. The man in 2A is not just allowed to be here. He was invited by the airline." Maya looked at Keanu. Her face changed from feeling guilty to being amazed. "Some of you may not have known who he was because he chose to fly quietly. But now, with his okay, I'd like to tell you." The captain paused. "Everyone, the man in seat 2A is Mr. Keanu Reeves." Gasps filled the cabin. Real gasps. The name was like lightning. Someone dropped a glass. The bald man in 1C sat up very straight, like he was shocked. Keanu took off his cap. Time stopped. Everyone had to think about what they had said or done, or not done. Whispers turned into silence. Then, slowly, people began to understand. The Keanu Reeves. "No way. Oh my gosh." Celeste froze. Her face turned red. She looked at Keanu. She looked at the crew. She hoped someone would help her. But no one did. Because everything had just changed. Keanu hadn't yelled. He hadn't moved. All he did was take off his cap. And now, things were different. Very different. The cabin air felt new. Before, there had been whispers and rudeness. Now, it was quiet. Awkward. Heavy. People looked around. Some looked nervous, like they thought they might be in trouble. Others leaned forward, trying to act nice now. But Keanu wasn't looking at anyone. He sat straight, quiet, with his cap beside his book. He looked older, with kind eyes and lines on his face that showed he had lived through a lot. But his face didn't change. He stayed calm. He wasn't sorry. He didn't need to be. At the front of the plane, the curtain opened. Captain Elijah stepped out. He wasn't smiling. He didn't need to. He looked strong and serious as he walked down the aisle. Everyone stared. He stopped at seat 2A. "Mr. Reeves," he said loudly so all could hear. "On behalf of Skyline Airways, I'm so sorry for what happened today. You should not have been questioned, embarrassed, or delayed." Keanu nodded once. "Thank you, Captain." The captain turned to the crew. "Maya, Logan." They stood up straight. "You will write full reports about what happened. You are grounded until we look into this." Maya started to speak but stopped. Logan didn't say anything. The captain looked at the other passengers. "And we're not done yet." He looked at one seat. Mrs. Aldridge. Celeste jumped a little. She had been trying to disappear. "Yes, Captain?" Her voice was small. "Please take your things." "What? Why?" She sounded scared. "You tried to bribe the crew. You were mean to another passenger. You lied to try to get someone kicked out of their seat." Celeste looked around. She hoped someone would help her. But no one looked at her. Nathan stared at the seat in front of him like it might save him. "This is all a big mistake," she said weakly. The captain didn't blink. "You will leave this plane right now. And you will never get special rewards with this airline again." Just then, 2 security guards walked out from the front. Celeste's face fell. "This is silly. I'll sue you. I'll ruin your airline." "You already tried," the captain said. "And you failed." The guard stood next to her. She stood up slowly. Her lipstick was messy. She didn't look fancy anymore. She walked down the aisle. Each step reminded everyone of how she had acted. As she walked through the cabin door and disappeared, everything went quiet. Captain Elijah turned back to Keanu and said, "We'll leave soon, Mr. Reeves. Thanks for waiting." Keanu gave a little nod. Then, as if he just remembered, Captain Elijah spoke louder so everyone could hear. Sometimes the quietest person in the room speaks the most important truth. With the woman named Celeste taken off the plane and the crew changed quietly, the cabin on Flight 765 felt strange and still. It wasn't the normal quiet before a plane takes off. It was the kind of silence that happens when people see something surprising and true. No one knew where to look. The same people who had whispered, judged, or rolled their eyes earlier now sat stiffly in their seats. Their faces turned red or looked out the window. Phones were put away. No one was gossiping anymore. Keanu Reeves went back to his seat, Seat 2A. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He wasn't smug. He just picked up his book like nothing happened. But everything had changed. A few rows behind him, the man in Seat 1C, who was losing his hair, felt uncomfortable. He remembered the mean thing he said earlier. He probably sneaked in. Now, that sentence felt like a bad secret he had told out loud. He cleared his throat and leaned across the aisle. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "I just want to say I'm sorry. I was wrong about you." Keanu looked at him and gave a polite nod. "Thank you," he said. The man didn't say anything else. He leaned back, feeling a little ashamed. Then a middle-aged woman, who had held her purse tightly when she first saw Keanu, reached into her bag. She stood up, walked over to him quietly, and offered a small chocolate bar. I bring these on flights because I get nervous," she said softly. "I thought maybe you'd like one." Keanu gave her a small smile. "That's kind of you." She went back to her seat, her face red, but she looked relieved. Even the new flight crew seemed different now. A young flight attendant came to Keanu. She placed a drink on his tray. It was apple juice in a fancy glass. "With our compliments, Mr. Reeves," she said kindly. "Is there anything else we can get for you?" He shook his head. "No, thank you. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." His words didn't just answer her. They said something bigger. As the plane started moving, no one rushed to text friends or take selfies. No one shouted, "Guess who's on my flight?" Instead, everyone was quiet. They were thinking. Seat 2A had been given back to Keanu. But more than that, something deeper had been given back too: dignity. High above the Pacific Ocean, flying at 36,000 feet, Flight 765 was very quiet. There were no little bell sounds, no clinking of food trays. Just the soft sound of the plane flying and the heavy feeling of what had happened. Keanu sat calmly in Seat 2A. The window next to him was half open. The sky outside glowed. His book was on his lap, but it was closed now. His hands were resting together, fingers touching. Then someone knocked on the side of his seat. It was Captain Elijah. "May I?" he asked. Keanu nodded. The captain sat across from him, on a little seat meant for eating fancy meals, not for serious talks. "I wanted to talk to you, just man to man," Elijah said. Keanu tilted his head, showing he was listening. The captain took a deep breath. "We failed today," he said. "Not just the flight crew. Everyone in the cabin. They didn't see you. They only saw what they thought you were, or even worse, what they assumed you weren't." Keanu didn't answer right away. He looked out at the clouds. "I didn't wear a suit," he said. "Didn't show my name. I wanted to be no one. And that's exactly how they treated you," the captain said. His voice was tight. "Like no one." Keanu looked back at him. "That's the point, isn't it? Dignity isn't something people should have to earn. It's something they deserve, just because they're human." The captain nodded slowly. "I already wrote reports," he said. "About the bribe, the unfair treatment, and how no one stepped in to help. There will be consequences." Keanu leaned back in his seat. "That's not what I want," he said. Captain Elijah looked surprised. Then what do you want? Keanu looked out the window again. A little light blinked on the wing. I want this story to last longer than me, he said. Not because I'm famous, but because someday someone else will sit in this seat, or any seat, and won't have to prove they deserve to be there. The captain didn't say anything for a moment. Then he stood up. You have my word, Mr. Reeves. We'll make this flight mean something. Keanu gave a quiet nod. Then I'd say it was worth the delay. The captain left. Keanu opened his book again. But now the words felt stronger. Behind him, the passengers weren't loud. But they were different. They understood something now. A lesson had been taught, and no one would forget it. The plane began to land. Seat belts clicked. Tray tables were put away. Everyone got ready for landing, just like always. But this time, the feeling in the cabin had changed. In seat 2A, Keanu looked calm. But his eyes looked like he had just gone through something big. Bigger than bumpy flying. All across the cabin, no one looked straight at him. Not because they were scared, but because they saw something in themselves when they looked at him. And it didn't always look good. The balding man in 1C had spent the last hour staring out the window, thinking about everything he didn't say. The woman with the chocolate had quietly cried behind her sunglasses. The new flight attendant had checked on Keanu again and again, not because it was her job, but because she respected him. The plane touched down gently. No one clapped. Just silence. When the doors opened, Keanu waited. He let everyone else leave first. Then, when it was his turn, the captain came back and walked with him to the gate. There were no cameras. No guards. Just one man walking with quiet dignity. As Keanu passed through the gate, someone whispered, "That really was him." Another voice answered, "And we really did that to him." But Keanu kept walking. Not to prove anything. He didn't need to. He already had. Sometimes, the strongest messages come without shouting. What happened on that flight wasn't about being famous. It was about people making guesses, being proud, and learning that every person deserves dignity, just for being a person. Keanu could have gotten angry. But he didn't. He could have shown off his name. But he didn't. And because he didn't, the lesson stayed in people's hearts. Forever. If you liked this story, tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more fun adventures and mysteries. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.